I am Alex Altschuler, the owner of Seal It Group. We specialize in sealing and restoration and landscape construction. I am a hardscaper.
What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 198 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. In today's episode, we have Alex from Seal It Group joining us for another I Am a Hardscaper episode, where we do a deep dive into his story, his business here. And I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Cycle CPA. If you need bookkeeping, accounting, or CFO services, reach out to them, cycle_CPA on Instagram, or check them out, cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services there. And when it comes to needing a system in place in your business to take care of things like budgeting, estimating, job costing, and so much more, we've got the How to Hardscape headquarters, and we're going to be expanding this out to include a lot of really cool things. Our members only platform with installation courses will be rolled over into this software, where you can assign those employees in your business courses on installation if you want to onboard them and have them set up for success on that first day, or if you want to train one of your laborers to become an installer. And not to mention the automation that comes with the software itself, everything from generating automated purchase orders for your vendors through to sending proposals out to clients and customizing those proposals to your business, having them digitally sign it and send it back to you. And we'll be talking more about the How to Hardscape headquarters throughout this year on the How to Hardscape podcast here. But if you want to get started there, we have free onboarding if you sign up in the month of March here. So shoot me a message at How to Hardscape, or just go to members.howtohardscape.com and learn more about the software there and book your demo as well. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Alex from Seal It Group. Awesome, Alex. Let's get to know a little bit about you yourself, how you got started in the industry. Can you give our audience a little bit of a background about your beginnings in this industry?
Definitely, Michael. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast, man. I actually started off in 2016 as a driveway sealing company, working different summer jobs for different landscapers and driveway sealing companies, and started off with basically sealing driveways and lawn care. This was about 2016. And like a few years later, we started sort of shifted the focus to sealing and restoration and landscape construction. So we saw a real demand in the market for these types of services, having been in the sealing industry from day one. But we realized that we really needed to step up our game to create, a service that would be sort of a niche in the industry. So we focused primarily and heavily in the beginning on sealing and restoration work. So restoring old pavers to new polymeric sand installation, sealing, applying sealer on mostly paving stones, and we still kept asphalt sealing and driveway sealing. And then a couple of years later, about 2019, 2020, we saw a huge demand for landscape design and build and construction because we would be doing sealing jobs, and many clients would ask us, well, can you guys install a patio? Can you guys re-level our walkway for us? And we found the demand was growing, and so we introduced that division a few years back to design and build. So right now we have the two divisions, which is the sealing and restoration division, which specializes in the sealing, restoration, polymeric sand, and also the landscape construction divisions.
Absolutely. I love the business model. It's exactly the way I started. A little bit less on the sealing side, more on the lift and relay. So I always love talking to people that share the same sort of business model in that. Lots of questions for you from this. Why start with the sealing maintenance route? Was there like a clear reason why? I know you touched on a little bit of like in that niche and really honing in on that, but any more reasons in terms of you're going to go this route, the maintenance route, as opposed to jumping headfirst into like big design build spaces?
Yeah, very good question, man. Well, honestly, not coming from a landscape background, obviously, I had very minimal experience with the construction side. And that's why it was easier for me to kind of focus on a side of the business where I had more experience in, such as the sealing, and everything like that. So I think I can kind of relate to your story where the way I actually got into the construction was also by doing lift and Rayleighs and kind of most of it is self-taught and learning from you know different videos, and then obviously working with guys on site and meeting people along the way that were able to do jobs together. So it was kind of like learning as I went, right? And so I also started off with the paver relay, as I said, lifting and relaying, learning how to grade, learning how to level, and then eventually that led into the bigger, large scale stuff like the patios and the walkways, and so that's kind of how it all came to be. Is that we got in with what we were good at and what we were good at the time, and then we expanded to what we knew there was a market for, and but at the same time being able to learn as well as we go. So that's be it wouldn't have been possible basically to go in full fledged because we didn't have the experience with it for the construction side. And obviously we weren't reputable yet. Our brand wasn't recognized yet. It wasn't strong, right? So it all kind of happened in a good timeline where everything was, we had the ceiling restoration to begin with. That was able to grow with the brand, and by the time the brand was strong, we were able to learn a lot of the construction side of it and introduce that kind of in a good time in our business that people would actually want to buy our products and services, right? Because we were already known. We had a good client base. We had good reviews. We had a good reputation online. So I think it was well timed in that regard, rather than trying to jump in right away, not knowing, not having the experience, not knowing how to price jobs. So that's kind of how we got in.
I love that. I think it's such
Yeah,
like a great business model to get started in. Like I tell people who reach out that they're thinking about getting into it, start small to make sure that you like it, right? And especially if you don't have like
exactly.
that building experience, you're gonna learn so much in those lift and relays getting
Big
started,
time.
as well as like low overhead, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I have to agree. Like in the beginning, obviously, yeah, you don't have the capital to be able to invest in machinery and things like that, right? Because your business is just fresh off the ground. You're more focused on, getting jobs. So you're kind of taking any job you can get just to build that reputation. And I'm sure we've all been there, especially with the lift and relays. You price it out. I don't know what the going rate nowadays is, $8 to $10 a square foot. I think now it's more. But you take a job and you think, oh yeah, we'll smash through this in a day. It ends up taking 2 3 days because one of your guys doesn't show up or whatever, and then and you learn, and then from there you build and you build, and eventually you learn more, and then you start investing, and then that's how you get to the bigger jobs, right? So like I
Yeah.
love how you said start small and build your way up, right? Because that's I think that's the way to go.
And you mentioned, yeah, building your reputation through that, which is great because you're gonna have more clients and you're gonna get word of mouth through that. In those early stages of getting leads when you're just starting your business, where do you start to get jobs from? Like, what are you doing to get those initial jobs when you're just starting out your business in that ceiling and maintenance space?
Great question, man. Honestly, in the beginning, for me, I was very fortunate because having worked for driveway sealing companies, aeration companies, most of our sales and work was all done door to door. So I got trained on door to door sales of services that you would be able to do on the spot. So I was fortunate enough to already come into my business with a pretty good sales experience. And when I started out as driveway sealing and basic lawn care services, I followed that same model of door to door. So I bought a machine, I bought whatever I needed to start off with, very basic setup, and I was able to just go door to door with that confidence that I would sell and close whatever I had to then reinvest and actually be able to become a brand where I wouldn't need to go door to door for sales. So I probably did door to door sales for a good 1 to 2 years, possibly even like 3 years. But 1 to 2 years for sure was really, really heavy door to door sales. And then, just doing good work, connecting with people, giving out cards, and in the middle of all that, and at the same time, you're building your brand. You have that mindset that you're going to become big. You're constantly improving yourself, and eventually you register your business, and you get a HomeStars account. So HomeStars has been great because that's able to build your reputation online with, verified reviews. And obviously then you get a website and, so people start to get to know you. You build your reviews and then, you start getting leads from these sources like HomeStars and everything like that. So I would say by third, fourth season, we were probably at about 20 to 30 reviews on HomeStars and we were getting good leads now finally. So HomeStars was a big thing for me to get the leads from there. Um, and then word of mouth started at the same time because you're building that client base. And then Instagram, getting that probably 2019, 2020, starting that page was a big thing too, right? Because just being able to, I mean, Instagram is your portfolio. It's your brand recognition. It's where people go to verify that you are who you are, and that's where they're gonna get the idea. Are we gonna hire this company or not? Because they're able to verify that the brand is real, and everything like that. They're able to see your work, and so that's been huge in growing the brand because we're able to showcase our work. And obviously people are able to verify everything, right? So basically, yeah, it's going back to kind of starting small, and growing, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it went. Yeah.
Alex, I'm a little curious about the door-to-door sales, to be honest, because
Yeah.
I did that once,
Nice.
and you have to be really good with accepting rejection, right? Uh,
100%.
can you give our audience, especially those maybe just starting out and wanting to start with door-to-door sales, can you give them like a few tips of how you get over that rejection, how you go about trying to sell somebody that you just knocked on their door and are just trying to build that rapport immediately, essentially? Any tips in terms of door-to-door sales?
Honestly, if I was to give one good tip, it would be just have your script down packed, memorize at the back of your head, and know that there's thousands of houses out there, or if not millions of houses out there, and one rejection shouldn't make you or break you type of thing. You gotta focus on the volume. If you're looking to start off with door to door, it's it's about consistency. Like any kind of sales process, right? It's constantly it's not fearing the rejection, having that script down packed, and realizing that there's always going to be another opportunity. I mean, if you know anything about door to door sales, obviously you're probably knocking on hundreds of doors a day. So it's normal to get at least maybe 20, 30 rejections, and the rest of them won't answer the door, and then you'll probably close at least 5 to 10 deals, right? So it's about having that growth mindset that you're gonna come, the good opportunity is gonna come along your way as long as you're consistent, and you're believing in what you're selling is very important too. If you give that vibe that you're here to do a good job, and obviously you're consistent, people will believe in that. They'll read that off you, and they'll give you the business, right? So um, I feel like rejection should drive you. It should drive you to do better, because not everybody's gonna want to buy what you're selling, right? Because you're coming out kind of out of the blue. No one's expecting you there. So some people might just say, I wasn't expecting you to get the heck out of here, and that's totally fine. You just know that there's always going to be that opportunity. There's always going to be that next door where you can present yourself, and someone will end up believing in you. Someone will, so know that there's always more opportunity ahead, and don't let it encourage you. Let the rejections encourage you rather than, you got to be hungry. You got to set a goal for the day. I had a goal, for example. I want to sell at least $1,000 a day in aeration on a Saturday, or you know $1,500 a day in driveway sealing. So that meant $300 per driveway. That's 5 driveways, or $200 per driveway. 10 driveways or 8 driveways to make that per day. So have a goal, and I think that'll help you get rid of get past those rejections, because you're sticking to your goal and you're hustling and you're just going harder, and you're not letting anything kind of get in your way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for me door to door personally. I guess it got to me, but where are your leads coming from nowadays in your business as you know where you are now with a couple different crews, a couple sort of different divisions doing different things. Yeah, where are those leads do you find are coming now?
Right now, it's definitely quite a mix. I would say the majority of the leads are coming from the online presence. So Homestars would be a big one still. Not as good as it was, to be honest, a few years ago, because I think ever since COVID, with the amount of saturation in the market, so many companies have opened up during COVID. Homestars has become obviously as well saturated. So with different contractors, so the leads aren't as good, but they're still relatively consistent, right? So we're able to get them from there. Instagram's been huge. Being able to work with other contractors that might want to sub you out some work, or uh, maybe they're too busy, so they can refer you a client. So that's been a big one as well. Um, Paid ads as well on Instagram has been great. Not always the best leads, but that's where pre-qualification comes in, right? So that's been big as well. And I mean, word of mouth is getting a lot better now as well, because now that we're, getting more and more established every year, we're finding that word of mouth is doing well as well now. We're able to get those are the most qualified leads, obviously,
Yeah.
because there's no tire kicking or haggling for price, because they've seen your work, it's verifiable, and the trust is there from the beginning. So that's been getting better and better every year. But yeah, so it's basically like a mix. It's a good mix of different platforms, but I would say the top ones would be Homestars, Instagram, and word of mouth, as well as just being noticed. We put signs up when we're doing a project as well. So that's actually another good one. Is when we're doing, say, an install, we put up our sign, and we're making it known that we're in the neighborhood. And those I find are very good leads, because they're much more qualified and higher quality leads. Because neighbors trust neighbors. So obviously, I think that avenue is one of the best ones. So putting up signs is key. You get dog walkers and neighbors noticing you, and branding all your trucks. So that's a big one. Being noticed, obviously, in neighborhoods. So yeah, those would be probably the top platforms.
I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. Right. And then when it comes to a lead reaching out to you, whether that's like through phone, email, text, wherever, however they may be contacting you, where do you take that conversation there? You mentioned pre-qualification in that last one. What kind of questions are you asking them, or where do you take that next step as soon as they contact you?
Yeah, so as soon as they contact us, basically we start that pre-qualification process. So, we're what we've done recently is we've implemented like a template where it's basically like a questionnaire that I developed, where it basically asks the client for all their project details. First of all, it thanks them for reaching out and for asking for an estimate, and that we're excited for the possibility to work with them and provide them with a quote. And then it gets into the specifics of their job, and it requests them to provide more details on their job. what kind of job is it? What's the size of the job? What's the scope of work? How did they hear about us? Pictures of the job so we can really get a visual understanding of their job. What's their budget like? So we created that template. We send it out to them by email, and they reply with all that information, and then we're able to analyze all of that and look at it and determine whether or not it's a job that will fit our our model and our criteria, right? So we have
Right.
job minimums, obviously. We have specific types of jobs that we prefer doing. There's got to be access for machinery. It's got to be a job that's obviously going to fit our model, like I said. So that's kind of how we work that process. We
Mhm.
found it very effective to be able to um, make sure that you're only going out to estimate the most qualified leads and therefore not wasting your precious time. You only have so many hours in a season. You have to meet those targets. So, time is money. You got to make sure that you're going out to the most qualified leads, and that's where this pre-qualification process comes in.
Nice. And we talked about this just before we started the interview, but what does your business look like right now in terms of crews and what type of work they are doing those different crews?
We have the two divisions. We have the landscape construction and the design or the ceiling and restoration. So those are our two main divisions, two main crews. So crew number one, ceiling and restoration. They're doing everything from restoring old pavers, so restoring, say, 25-year-old pavers that have weeds, and making them look brand new. So power washing all the weeds, the dirt, the moss out of the joints, um, applying brand new polymeric sand, tamping it down, watering, activating the sand, and then applying a sealer onto the stone. So making it look brand new. Um, Natural stone sealing as well, concrete sealing. So everything to do with exterior sealing and restoration of exterior hardscape surfaces. And then the landscape construction division, we do kind of mid-sized jobs where we do like full backyards, um, front entrance jobs, patios, walkways, porch overlays, lighting. So everything sort of but pools is what we kind of specialize in. So retaining walls, features, um, that's kind of our specializations.
Gotcha. And then going from the lead process to going ahead and scheduling a consultation, do you charge for consultations, and why or why not?
Yeah, so that's something that it's kind of a very controversial topic. I think a lot of companies are struggling with should we charge, should we not? And I've kind of been in the same boat for the last couple of years. Um, and I actually tried out last year to start charging for estimates because obviously it's a lot of time. It's a lot of
Yeah.
time that goes into these estimates, and a lot of time it's overlooked and you underestimate, of course, how much you're going to spend on that. Like you think you're going to go out, it's going to be an hour meeting. It's probably going to take you an hour to come up with the estimate, so 2 hours. But by the time all said and done, maybe it takes you 4 hours, and you didn't charge for that extra 2 hours. So you think, okay, well, maybe I can charge for estimates and compensate. So last year I tried to implement I think it was a 250 or $300 estimate fee, which as part of that pre-qualification process I was talking about earlier, where it's the email we send out asking with all the job details and pictures, we notify them that there will be that $300 estimate fee for coming out, and consulting with them. And then, but if they end up doing the job, we waive that fee. And to be honest with you, the response last year wasn't good at all. Like
Okay.
most people were not really not really for it. They were kind of caught off guard, and they weren't really about it. So we found that a lot of leads were lost in the beginning, um, with people just kind of replying, "Well, this is not really what we were expecting." So they at that point they're thinking, "Well, why am I going to pay $300 when I can just find a company that's giving free estimates?" Right? So it's a very it's a hard kind of thing to try and understand it. Is it worth it or not? Because I mean, I think it really depends as well on your business model. So, long story short, I got rid of that, and I just kind of had to go with the free estimate, as always. And with that, obviously, just strengthening up the pre-qualification process to ensure that when you're going to site, you're you're not wasting as much time. So you're as efficient and productive as possible.
I've heard a lot of different ways about going about the consultation rate. I don't charge a consultation rate. I don't think my brand is where I want it to be, to a point where, it makes sense to charge, I guess, a consultation rate based on that. Maybe sometime in the future. I try to work it into my overhead personally to make sure I'm getting recouped on that time anyways, which would be similar
Nice.
to like charging it and then reimbursing it if they go ahead with you, right? So lots of
That's
different
that's
ways
a
that people
cool
can go
model.
about it. Yeah.
That's a really cool model, actually. To be basically, it's kind of like it appears to the client that it's a free estimate, but you're making sure that you're compensated for it. It's built into your overhead, and that way you're getting paid for your time, but they don't really have to know that, right? So
Exactly.
you're not losing out. You're making, every hour of your time back.
Yeah.
Um, that's amazing. So how exactly do you do that? Do you put it into your overhead as a like an estimated amount of hours that you think you would spend per
Yeah, I
year?
just I just go off of like my salary, and I look at how many jobs I quoted last year, and I figure out like an average of how long it took me for that. So then I've got like
Nice.
the amount of hours, and then I just add in a little bit of that versus like what I would get paid essentially for that time. So it's not like
Nice.
an hour amount, it's a dollar amount that I put into my overhead.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. That's just for now, that's the way I'm doing it. Maybe in the future we'll get into doing consultation rates, but who knows? I figure the pushback would be very similar to what you got there when I start doing that. So trying to kick that can down the road as much as possible here. But
For sure.
yeah, in the so you've scheduled a consultation with a client. What kind of questions are you asking them to know, say you're doing like a backyard install, and what kind of questions are you asking them, or what are you going through in that initial consultation to understand, the scope of work and what kind of features they may want in that project and everything that you will include into it?
Yeah, great question. I mean, generally going to the consultation, we'll already have like a pretty good understanding of what it is that we're quoting on. So during the meeting, our main focus is to understand, exactly the type of design that they want, because that's where we really get heavily into the design part. Are they wanting a modern design, a traditional design? What's sort of their overall vision for their backyard? Um, and obviously, we look at the project with them. We discuss, what their needs are, what's their vision, and we start chatting about different options for their design. So, we can show them our gallery as well on our website to give them ideas of the type of work we've done and the type of work that we would recommend for them to be done based on, modern designs and everything like that. So educating them as well on, the quality of the products that we're using, the quality of the install that they're going to get with us. Walking them through every step of that process that they're going to be getting, making them feel comfortable that they're going to be hiring the best contractor to do their job. So talking everything from installation methods to design to just really understanding their vision and making them feel comfortable that we're going to be able to bring their vision to life, and that they're going into like a good relationship with their contractor. So um, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Like obviously we take our measurements, we draw it out to do like a quick 2D drawing so that you can then put that into a design software or whatever the case is to continue that process.
Yeah. And then when it comes to signing up the project and you are What are your schedule of payments look like upfront this percentage, at some point in the job this percentage, and at the end of the job this percentage? What does that look like for you, especially on, say, like smaller jobs like ceiling jobs versus those larger jobs? How does that change, and what do you do for those?
Great question. So yeah, for the ceiling jobs, small jobs, we like to, to start off with, I always like to take at least a 10% deposit just to book a date. So, that just shows, that the client is serious. They're going to do their job. They're not going to back out last minute, and then it doesn't conflict with our schedules. And it ensures that, we're forecasting, we're able to meet targets, and we can see how our season's going. So that's a big one. 10% off the bat just to set a date. And just before we start the job, we normally take another 40%. So that equals to 50% up front just before starting the job. And then the final, excuse me, the final 50% is upon job completion, upon reviewing the job together with the client, making sure they're 100% satisfied. We take that final 50%. Now this is for, small to medium jobs.
Yeah.
Large construction jobs will take progress payments. So, we'll do the 10%, then we'll do the 40% before we start. And then, depending on how it's going, we might ask for another 20 or 30, and then it'll be like a 15% holdback. But that's only for, larger jobs, say over 40, 50K, where we need to continue, meeting our running costs and covering our costs. But for anything generally under that, it's pretty much what I explained earlier with the kind of 50-50.
And then doesn't have to be related, but sometimes for people answer this next question with some sort of payment struggle. But this next question for you, Alex, is a horror story that you've had in business. It's difficult to be in business for any length of time without having one maybe small horror story. But the reason why I asked this is to help those contractors just getting started or thinking about getting into it. Just let them know, hey, this could happen to you. You can maybe prevent it by doing this, but at least prepare yourselves that this is something that could happen to you. So Alex, my question to you, do you have a horror story that you'd want to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. There's probably a lot of horror stories. But one that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, if you will, is kind of at the very beginning of when I started out. At the time, I I bought the vehicle that I can afford. So it was a 2001 GMC Safari. I think I paid $1,500 for the vehicle. So I mean, what can you get for 1,500? Obviously, complete, rusted out, kind of box on wheels, we'll call it. Where I just kind of slapped the driveway ceiling unit in the back, ripped the seats out, put everything I had to put into it in, and I was towing a little trailer 4x8 with all our lawnmowers on it. And I remember getting on the highway, and obviously, no CVR, no registrations, no yellow stickers. You didn't know about any of that yet. This is humble beginnings, we'll call it. So, you're I'm driving down the highway, and I start to notice like a real good wobble on the front end there. And I'm like, well, something's definitely wrong, right? So I'm like, it's okay. It's an old truck. It's got 300,000. It's normal, right? So I keep driving and driving and driving, and I'm thinking it's gonna get better. I'm thinking it's gonna get better. Turns out it's getting worse. It's getting worse. But I didn't have time to pull over. I think at the time I had to go meet somebody to pick up a machine or something I was looking to buy, and there was a meeting I had to get done. So, long story short, I end up getting a flat tire, and so it ended up being a tire that was going bad or whatever. I ended up getting this flat tire, and I can't remember if I was on the highway or off the road. I think I just ended up making it to a client's house, and I have this flat tire, a trailer on there, a driveway ceiling unit in the back, and I'm like, well, I have to get this fixed. I have a bunch of other calls today I got to do. So the first thing you do, you look under the car for your spare tire. So I remember, taking the spare tire off, and it was probably the most dinkiest, spare tire you'd ever see in your life. It was, the donut spare tire for the Safari. It's obviously larger, but it's still skinny, almost like a bicycle tire, and it's completely rusted out. You could see the tread on it is worn out. It needs to, it shouldn't even be on that truck. and I end up calling CAA, and because I didn't have a jack to do it or any tools, and I basically call them in and I let the guy know who comes to change the tire, like this is the tire, and he looks at me, he says, "Are you crazy? You're not putting this tire on." I go, I basically was begging him at the time. He said, "No, I'm not putting it on. Like, there's no way." I'm like, "Well, look, I don't have any other option. Like, I have to keep going, right? Like, I'm literally just going maybe 5 kilometers away to a Mr. Lube just to get a new tire, and then be on my way." And he gave in eventually because he understood. He felt my pain. He understood that I'm trying to keep going, and so but yeah, it was like just overwhelming this whole process. So he ended up putting it on, and I ended up going to the nearest tire shop, getting the new tire put on, and on my way. But yeah, it was just an overwhelming experience. Just obviously you're driving on the road, your tires wobbling, you don't know if that thing's gonna fall off. You're just all these thoughts are going through your head. Am I gonna make it? Is this thing gonna just give up on me? Am I gonna be able to keep running my business with this crappy truck? And yeah, and you get these moments where there's just just really kind of, how do you call it,
The
do or
downtimes.
die. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, even do or die kind of
that's
life or
better.
death situations. Yeah, right. Like where you're just like you're running on fumes, and there's you're improvising. You're it's yeah. So that was, it was scary stuff. Just having to go through all that, but eventually I got a truck, and I got a used truck, and you know and more horror stories came after that, but those were maybe a little bit better than that one. Because you realize that planning ahead is key, having everything set up is key. um but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So yeah, like, scary experience, but like I said, you got to start somewhere, and you got to do what you got to do. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's a great horror story to share, and like I can empathize with that. I've had my share of flat tires when I was just starting out too, and also dealing with CAA, and that's never a fun time.
I remember just constantly also driving this setup, just praying that CV or MTO doesn't pull me over. I remember you know seeing an MTO truck, and as soon as they see this van and this trailer, I remember they get right behind me, and I'm like looking in my mirror. Oh, they're gonna pull me over. They're gonna pull me over. And at the time you're probably not registered or whatever, and you're just, it looks like you're kind of just a independent contractor, maybe even like a homeowner.
Right.
So the guy probably followed me for quite a bit, but then he obviously realized that there's no sense pulling me over, because I was within probably weight ranges. It's just that he probably wouldn't be able to get anything really, right?
Yeah.
But it's like it makes you kind of cringe. It's like, is he gonna pull me over? Is what's gonna happen, kind of thing. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Especially in those early days, absolutely. And
Yeah.
turning the page on those horror stories there, any tools or equipment, Alex, that you live by in your business, whether you started out with them right away and you love them, or you've implemented them recently? Uh, can be anything related to tools, equipment in the office, in the field, anything that you've implemented into your business that you love and really stand by.
Yeah, man. Honestly, the last couple of years, I've really been investing into the tools and equipment. Um, the one major machine I would call for hardscape, it would be, in my opinion, if you're starting out, it's your, it's your gold machine. It's going to be your real money maker. Is like a mini skid steer. So I was fortunate to get into the market at the end of 2020, with the Bobcat MT 100, when the prices were still relatively okay. Um, and I think I ordered it in December, got it in March. And now you want to order one of those, you're waiting at least a year, 6 months to a year, and the prices have gone up by like 15 grand. So, but yeah, it's probably the most versatile machine you can get starting out. It'll dig your patio. It will bring your gravel in, it'll lift your stone, it'll do whatever it has to do. As an entry level machine that can do everything, I think it's probably the best machine you can get starting out. So that's been our favorite machine, and most of our guys on our crew love it because it's super versatile. It could do everything. Um, so that's one thing I swear by for hardscape is if you're running a hardscape business, no matter what size, you're going to have your larger skid steers, smaller skid steers, but every hardscape crew, small or large, needs a mini skid steer. Tight access, versatility. It's the best of its kind. So there's the Bobcat MT100 has been a game changer, and also last year we ended up getting a IQ saw. So the IQ saw has been also an absolute game changer. Just being able to be completely dust free, having perfect cuts which you would never get. You're saving your back, and the learning curve is much less, right? So you're able to train new hires how to cut way easier than trying to teach them how to use a regular quick cut. Um, yeah, like I said, obviously your cuts come out 100% versus maybe 70, 80, and that's visible on a job, especially I would say where the IQ saw comes in the most handy is on the porch overlay jobs where you can really see like a two caps joined together on a corner or a miter cut. That's where the IQ saw will be probably the best because it will get the cut so perfect that you in some cases you won't even see the cut. That's how good it is because the joint is so good that it's like, was that even cut? And then you look close, wow. So whereas with the quick cut, there's always that margin of error, that vibrate, that the shaking, the not being completely 90. So yeah, that's been huge, and even just being able to not have dust on job sites. You know how many neighbors come and complain, oh, there's dust on my car, and you're blowing it off, and then you look at actually how much dust comes out of that. It makes you realize like you would have been breathing that in otherwise, right? As well. So there's the safety aspect of it, you know. So you're saving your lungs, you're saving the neighborhood from dust all over people's houses and cars. You're having clean cuts. It honestly one of the best investments and tools I've made for my business. So I'd highly recommend anybody getting started or growing their business. Get that saw. That'll change the way you look at getting your hardscape jobs done.
Hey, do you have a budget set for 2023? Are you starting the estimating process with a budget in place to ensure that you are recovering your overhead expenses, labor, material costs, profit, and other hidden expenses within your business? Do you know that you're making profit on certain projects throughout the year? If you're struggling with any of these things, then the How to Hardscape headquarters can help you this year. Check it out at members.howtohardscape.com or shoot me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. This software will streamline processes in your business. It's going to help you budget, estimate, ensure that you are making profit on projects throughout the year, and help you adjust throughout the year. We're also going to be continuously improving this software to include more and more features, as well as the content that's already available to members right now if you're looking to train your employees as they come in. So once again, members.howtohardscape.com. The price will continuously go up as more features and as more content is offered over there. So there's never a bad time to get signed up with that. And with that being said, let's get back to the episode.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to backtrack really quickly for this question here, Alex. I've been trying to ask this more and more. In terms of sending a proposal or a quote to a client, how do you break up the job? Do you just send one price for the entire project? Do you do work areas where you send prices for different work areas, or do you do line item where everything is listed and there's a price for all that? How are your proposals kind of structured?
Great question. It really depends on the type of job and whether or not the client actually wants a breakdown. So if it's, for example, just a patio and steps for the backyard, that would just be one price for that job. But if there's a lot more scope and if the client wants some extras where they might want to see what something costs on top of an existing project, for example, lighting or like an add-on, right? Or like a feature or a fire pit or something they want to add on, then we would itemize it so they can understand how much it would cost extra.
Right.
So generally speaking, if they don't want to see those extra costs or to understand what something costs extra, we'll just put it all as one price. Um, and then yeah, we'll only do the line items if they request it so they can understand how much extra it will cost them. Um, yeah, so sometimes you'll give the one price though, and the client might come back and say, well, can you break everything down for me, what everything costs, right? So that that sometimes gets tricky because when you factored in, say, how many ever hours is for that job, you might not be able to itemize it in such a way that you'll then be profitable if they only end up going for two or three of the services. So I find that because of that, I just give the one price for the job unless they request extras.
Anybody on this podcast that you'd want to give a shout out to in terms of they've helped you along the way in business, or you look to them for inspiration, or just anything in general, online, offline, anybody that you want to give a shout out to here too?
Honestly, I have to give a shout out to everybody, man. Everybody that's doing their thing and on their grind, hustling, and because we're all here to help each other. But if there's a few people that stand out, Paver King, Landscape Daddy, and How to Hardscape, your guys' podcast is amazing. Yeah, the no value, all those, just to keep us sane and keep us kind of, not always too serious, right? Like I think that's you guys are doing great with that. With that podcast is going awesome. So kudos to you guys for keeping everybody in a good mind state and a healthy, positive vibes. Also, just mentors. Yourself, Michael. Your podcast, your resources online have been huge. They've been a huge help for me and my business, and as I'm growing and trying to realize that growth comes with the right systems. It comes with the right processes in place, and you're always building that. And as you continue running your business, you start analyzing it from a different perspective always, and you're always trying to figure out how are you going to make yourself more profitable? How are you going to be able to step out as an owner operator to just the owner? And that's only going to come with systems which you constantly have to be working on, right? But they've got to be systems that are easy to implement, easier. And I think you've got an amazing tool, and lots of tools actually online with your with your budgeting and your videos and your certificates for installers. So many resources I think that can help businesses grow. So that's been a game changer as well. Implementing the budgeting spreadsheet and now the app coming up. I'm really excited for that.
I appreciate the shout out there, and I know the Not Our Finest Hour guys, Landscape Daddy and Paver King, myself included, really appreciate the listeners tuning into that podcast. So
I did want to give one more shout out to one of our suppliers, ProDrop. They've been actually a game changer. They've been a game changer for our industry and how we do business. So ProDrop is an online supplier of landscape products, so everything from interlock pavers to gravel, aggregates, and their business model is being able to bring you as a contractor your building materials on demand. So we're able to order online. Say we need 3 yards of granular A gravel or 2 yards of HPB. They can guarantee it there within 1 to 3 hours, no matter what time of day you order it, right? So I can go in the app. Or on their website, I can place an order, say at 1 in the afternoon. Maybe I'm short. Instead of sending one of my guys out to grab it, or being delayed on the job for whatever reason because I'm not able to get it, I can quickly go in the app, order the product. It's there within 2 hours on demand. So that's been a big changer for us, a game changer, in the sense that we've been able to increase some profit margin there because we're not spending time picking up and delivering our own materials. And they're able to bring it to us on demand. So I highly recommend trying them out if anybody's looking to bring their business to the next level. To save yourself a lot of overhead and running costs from being on the road. Your reliability by being on the road, there's more risk, there's more time that you should be spending on your job site, focusing on running your crew and making sure you're productive and you're meeting those budgets rather than being on the road grabbing materials. So they've been a huge game changer for us. Once again, that's ProDrop, PRODROP, ProDrop. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook.
That's a really interesting business model. I think, did they start out as like Load Army, that app, and then sold to somebody, and then ProDrop or something like that? I used them a couple of years ago when they were Load Army, I think.
I'm not sure of exactly their beginnings and how they got started, but I'm thinking, you're right. There's similar businesses out there, kind of like Reno Run and all these different kinds of on-demand building suppliers. So I think they might have kind of gone off that kind of model where it's catering to like an on-demand type of service, right? An on-demand kind of approach to doing business where there's an app, it's quick, right? You don't have to call in and wait to speak to somebody and place an order and give them your credit card number. It's just like right away, quick on an app. It's there, they guarantee it, kind of thing, right? So cool. I think in this day and age with the technology we have we should be using it to our advantage. So I think great business model. I mean, we've been loving it, and so they're growing good, and I think anybody should just try them out, and they won't be disappointed.
Alex, this has been such a great interview. I have one last question to close things off here, man. And it's a big one. So I want to ask you, what's that one thing you know now in your business that you wish you knew from the very beginning? Could be personal related, can be business related, but what's that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning?
That's a hard question to answer, because I think the easiest way to answer would be like, I wish I knew everything that I didn't know, kind of thing, right? But if there's kind of one thing, I would say have a plan, have a proper plan when you're going into something big. I mean, we don't always plan that we're going to get big, right? So some of us just get into things. Like I got into this business not looking to take it big. I was just like, well, I'll try it out and see how it goes, right? And but looking back, I think regardless of whether you're looking to take it big or not, always have a plan for at least a few years ahead of how you're going to do things. So visualize where you're going to be, and like if I was to do it again, I would definitely have try to get a little bit more business knowledge and business understanding, to have the right systems in place from the beginning of opening up my company, so that it streamlines the growth a little bit more and makes it easier to run the company. Because the business, the systems and the processes, like I said before, are so key. And a lot of us that start businesses not coming from business backgrounds, which is probably most hardscapers, we don't realize that in the beginning. We only realize it when we're working those 80-hour weeks, we're working those 100-hour weeks, whatever it is, and we're so burnt out, and we're like, well, something's wrong here. What's wrong? We don't have a plan. We don't have the systems. So I think if I was to do it all over again, I would have had those from the beginning, and basically, just been able to be a lot more successful. I think we're at this point, right? So, but the resources are there. They're out there, right? I think, So
awesome. Yeah, Alex, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time here. Where can our audience go find out more about you, what you got going on? Where can they find out more about your business?
So we're Seal It Group on Instagram, sealitgroup.ca. Check us out, follow us, check out our work, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Check out Alex at Seal It Group on Instagram there. And once again, if you're on Instagram already doing that, cycle_CPA, let them know How to Hardscape sent you for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, and you'll get $200 off their services there. And the How to Hardscape headquarters. This is the last month to get in on free onboarding with this software. So head on over to members.howtohardscape.com there and book your demo, or just shoot me a message at How to Hardscape on Instagram. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.